Hey Reddit, after 15 years of dedicating my life to food research and development, I just got terminated. The crazy part? I think it might be the best thing that ever happened to me. Let me back up. My name is Kevin, and I'm 38 years old. I've been working at Savory Solutions, a mid-sized food development company in Portland, Oregon, since I graduated with my food science degree. When I started there, the company had maybe 40 employees total. We developed flavoring systems, preservatives, and custom formulations for restaurants, food manufacturers, and specialty brands. I literally grew up with this company. Started as a junior researcher making $42,000 a year, working under Dr. Elena Vasquez, who was basically a genius when it came to natural flavor extraction. She taught me everything, not just the science, but the art of understanding what clients actually wanted versus what they said they wanted. Over the years, I became the go-to guy for complex projects. When McDonald's, not really, but a chain that big, needed a clean label solution for their signature sauce that wouldn't separate during shipping, they came to us. When a major snack company wanted to reduce sodium by 40% without losing taste, that landed on my desk. I developed proprietary processes, managed client relationships, and trained every new hire who came through our R&D department. The company grew around me. We went from 40 to 200 employees. Revenue jumped from $8 million to $65 million annually. I got promoted to senior research scientist, then principal researcher, finally ending up as director of product innovation. My salary grew to $95,000, which isn't Silicon Valley money, but it was comfortable for Portland, especially since my wife Scarlett works as a nurse. 3 months ago, everything changed. The board brought in a new VP of operations, this guy named Chad Morris. Fresh MBA from Wharton, previously worked at some consulting firm that specialized in operational efficiency for food companies. The guy was 29 years old and had never actually developed a food product in his life. From day one, Chad made it clear he thought our R&D department was bloated and outdated. He kept talking about right-sizing and leveraging cost efficiencies. He'd walk through our lab with his clipboard, asking questions like, why do we need 3 spectrometers when 2 would probably work? Or, couldn't we outsource some of this testing to save on equipment costs? What bothered me most was how he'd interrupt client meetings with suggestions that showed he fundamentally misunderstood our work. During a presentation to a potential client, a craft brewery wanting to develop beer-infused barbecue sauces, Chad suggested we could just add beer concentrate and call it done. I had to explain later privately why that approach would result in bitter, unbalanced products that would destroy their brand reputation. The writing was on the wall when Chad started hiring efficiency consultants to review our processes. These were kids fresh out of college with business degrees, taking notes while I explained fermentation protocols I'd spent years perfecting. They kept asking why we couldn't streamline development cycles, as if innovation worked on a quarterly timeline. Last month, Chad scheduled individual meetings with every R&D team member. When my turn came, he started by praising my institutional knowledge and historical contribution. Then he dropped the bomb. He'd been researching my role and believed most of my responsibilities could be handled by 2 junior researchers at half the combined cost. Nothing personal, Kevin, he said, like we were buddies. But the board is pushing for cost optimization across all departments. Your salary alone could fund 2 fresh graduates who bring updated methodologies and energy to the team. I asked about my ongoing projects. The partnership with a major organic food company worth potentially $12 million, the proprietary preservation system I'd been developing for 3 years, the client relationships I'd built over more than a decade. Chad waved it off, saying knowledge transfer would handle the transition seamlessly. That was 2 weeks ago. Yesterday, HR called me in for what they said was a restructuring discussion. Chad was there with Jennifer Walsh from HR, and they had already prepared my severance paperwork. 15 years condensed into a 3-page document offering 2 months' salary and a generous benefits extension. We appreciate everything you've contributed, Jennifer said, reading from what was obviously a script. This decision reflects changing business needs, not your performance quality. Chad added that they'd found 2 recent graduates who could bring fresh perspectives to my role. One specializes in food chemistry, the other in product development. Combined salary, $85,000. My salary, $95,000. The math was simple in their minds. I signed the paperwork without arguing. What was the point? But as I cleaned out my office, something interesting happened. 3 different clients called my direct line asking about project status. I had to transfer them to Chad, and I could hear his confusion as they asked technical questions he couldn't answer. The organic food company partnership I mentioned? It's based on a specific fermentation process I developed that creates unique umami compounds without using traditional MSG or yeast extracts. The process involves precise temperature control, pH monitoring, and timing that I've never fully documented because it requires intuitive adjustments based on variables that change with raw material sources. Those two new hires? They don't know this process exists. Chad doesn't know it exists. Dr. Vasquez, who might have understood it, retired 6 months ago. I'm sitting here at home, 3 days after my last day, and I keep getting calls. Not from Chad. He's probably busy onboarding his fresh graduates. From our clients. The craft brewery called this morning. They'd sent samples of their beer to our lab 2 weeks ago for flavor profile analysis, and the new team delivered results that made no sense. Apparently, one of the new hires identified hop bitter compounds in a wheat beer that uses a proprietary hop blend specifically designed to minimize bitterness. They recommended reducing hop content by 60%, which would fundamentally change the beer's character. I spent an hour on the phone with the brewery's head brewmaster, explaining what actually happened. The analysis was technically correct but missed the context. The hop blend creates bitterness compounds that dissipate during the brewing process, leaving behind flavor compounds that enhance the beer's wheat characteristics. It's the kind of nuance you learn from years of working with brewing clients, not from textbooks. The conversation ended with him asking if I was available for consulting work. This afternoon, the major snack company I'd been working with called directly. They'd received preliminary formulation samples for their low-sodium project, and the samples tasted like cardboard. The new team had reduced sodium content by substituting with potassium chloride without accounting for how it would interact with their specific protein matrix and oil system. I've spent 3 years developing a complex blend of natural flavor enhancers, specific amino acid combinations, and mineral balancing agents that reduce sodium without the metallic aftertaste most low-sodium products have. The process requires precise ratios and a specific order of ingredient incorporation that I've never written down completely because it evolved through hundreds of iterations. The snack company's R&D director was frustrated. "Kevin, we've been working on this for 2 years. Now we're basically starting over with people who don't understand what we're trying to achieve. 2 consulting inquiries in 1 day. Scarlett thinks I should call Chad and offer to help with the knowledge transfer, maybe as a short-term consultant. She's worried about our mortgage and wants me to stay connected to Savory Solutions until I find something permanent. But honestly, I'm starting to think Chad did me a favor. For 15 years, I've been solving problems for a company that grew successful partly because of my innovations, but I never owned any of it. Every proprietary process, every client relationship, every breakthrough, it all belonged to Savory Solutions. I was well compensated, sure, but I was also trapped in a structure where my value was seen as replaceable. These client calls are opening my eyes. They're not calling Savory Solutions asking for help. They're calling me personally. They want my expertise, my understanding of their specific needs, my ability to solve problems that generic approaches can't handle. I'm starting to think about what it would mean to work for myself. Going to sleep on it tonight. Tomorrow I need to start making some decisions about what comes next. Update coming soon. Update 1. It's been a week since my last post, and holy crap, things are happening faster than I expected. First, the situation at Savory Solutions is apparently not going well. My buddy Jake, who still works in the lab, texted me yesterday with some details. The 2 new hires Chad brought in are struggling badly. Remember that organic food company partnership I mentioned? The one worth potentially $12 million? They walked away. Here's what happened. The partnership was based on developing a line of organic soup bases using my fermentation process. The client sent their technical team to review our capabilities last Tuesday. Chad tried to present the project himself, but when they asked specific questions about fermentation protocols and quality control measures, he had to keep turning to the new hires. The junior researchers had my written documentation, basic procedures, ingredient lists, equipment specifications, but they didn't understand the why behind any of it. When the client asked about troubleshooting off flavors that sometimes develop during fermentation, the new team basically shrugged and suggested they'd research solutions and get back to them. According to Jake, the client team exchanged glances and politely ended the meeting early. They called Chad the next day to terminate the partnership, citing concerns about Savory Solutions' technical capabilities. $12 million. Gone. Chad apparently had an emergency meeting with the board that same afternoon. Meanwhile, I've been getting more calls. The craft brewery offered me a 6-month consulting contract to help them launch their beer-infused sauce line. The pay is actually better per hour than my old salary, and I'd be working directly with their brewmaster and marketing team instead of through corporate layers. But the really interesting call came from Dr. Rebecca Holt. She runs a boutique food development firm called Artisan Innovations that specializes in clean label, premium products for high-end restaurants and specialty food companies. She'd heard about my situation through industry connections and wanted to know if I was interested in joining her team as a partner, not just an employee. "Kevin," she said during our phone call, "I've been following your work for years. That umami enhancement system you developed? 3 of my clients have asked me specifically about replicating those results. I told them it was impossible without understanding your process. Partnership, not employment. Partnership." Dr. Holt explained that Artisan Innovations operates differently from traditional food companies. Instead of having a large internal R&D staff, they work with a small network of specialized consultants and partners who each bring unique expertise. When a client needs something specific, they assemble the right team for that project. "We're not trying to be everything to everyone," she said. "We're trying to be the best at solving problems that other companies can't handle. Your fermentation expertise, your understanding of how to balance clean label requirements with taste and functionality, that's exactly what our clients need." The financial structure she proposed was fascinating. Instead of a straight salary, I'd receive a base retainer plus equity participation in projects I lead. For projects based on my proprietary processes, I'd retain partial ownership of the intellectual property while licensing it through Artisan Innovations. Basically, instead of selling my knowledge to a company that could fire me and keep everything I developed, I'd be building assets that belong to me while collaborating with a team that values what I bring. Scarlett and I talked about it for hours last night. The uncertainty is scary. No guaranteed salary, no traditional benefits, no corporate security blanket. But the upside potential is enormous. If I'm successful, I could be building something much bigger than a job. And honestly, after 15 years of watching my innovations make other people wealthy while I collected a steady paycheck, the idea of owning my success is incredibly appealing. I'm meeting with Dr. Holt in person next week to discuss details. Oh, and one more thing. Jake texted me again this morning. Apparently, the snack company decided to pull their low-sodium project from Savory Solutions entirely. They're going to work with another firm that has experience with complex sodium reduction. Chad is reportedly in full panic mode, because that project represented about $800,000 in annual recurring revenue. 2 major client losses in 2 weeks. I'm not celebrating their problems. I spent 15 years helping build that company, and part of me will always care about its success. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't some satisfaction in watching Chad's cost optimization strategy backfire so spectacularly. More updates coming as this situation develops. Update 2. 3 days after my meeting with Dr. Holt, which went incredibly well by the way, more on that later, I got a phone call that I honestly didn't see coming. Chad Morris. Calling my personal cell phone at 7:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. "Kevin, hey, it's Chad from Savory Solutions. Hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." The tone was completely different from our last conversation. Gone was the confident MBA speak about operational efficiency and cost optimization. He sounded tired, maybe even a little desperate. I wanted to touch base about some challenges we're facing with client transitions. We've had a few bumps in the road, and I'm wondering if you might be available to help us smooth things over. Bumps in the road. That's one way to describe losing $12.8 million in annual revenue in 2 weeks. "What kind of help are you looking for, Chad?" I asked. "Well, we're finding that some of your projects require more institutional knowledge than we initially anticipated. The fermentation protocols, the client relationship management, some of the custom formulation work, it's more complex than we realized." No shit, I thought, but I kept that to myself. "We'd love to bring you back as a senior consultant to help with knowledge transfer and maybe handle some of the more technical client relationships. We could offer competitive consulting rates, and it would be short-term, maybe 6 months while we get everyone up to speed." I asked what kind of rates he was thinking. "We could probably do $85 an hour for technical consulting, plus expenses. Given your expertise level, that would probably work out better financially than your previous salary." $85 an hour. For context, my previous salary worked out to about $45 an hour. So they were offering nearly double my hourly rate, which sounds great until you realize they're asking me to fix problems created by firing me in the first place. "Chad," I said, Can I ask what specific problems you're trying to solve? There was a long pause. Then he started explaining the situation from his perspective, and honestly, it was worse than I'd realized. The organic food company wasn't the only major client they'd lost. 3 other companies had either terminated projects or indicated they were considering switching to other vendors. The new junior researchers were technically competent but couldn't replicate my results because they didn't understand the underlying principles behind my processes. We've got documentation, Chad said, but it's like having sheet music when what you need is a jazz musician. These guys can follow the notes, but they can't improvise when something goes wrong. That's actually a pretty insightful analogy, and I told him so. But here's the thing, I'd already committed to partnering with Dr. Holt at Artisan Innovations. We'd spent 3 hours discussing not just the business arrangement, but the philosophy behind how they work with clients. It was everything I'd wanted at Savory Solutions but never had: creative freedom, intellectual property ownership, direct client relationships, and financial upside tied to success rather than just salary. Dr. Holt had made it clear that if I joined Artisan Innovations, I'd be bringing my existing client relationships and proprietary processes with me. The craft brewery, the snack company, even the organic food company, they'd all expressed interest in working with me directly. Chad, I appreciate the offer, but I've already committed to another opportunity. Kevin, I know we didn't handle your transition perfectly, but we can make this right. What would it take to get you back? We could probably negotiate on the consulting rate. What would it take? I thought about that question for the rest of the conversation. It would take Chad admitting that firing me was a mistake made for short-term cost savings without understanding long-term consequences. It would take the board acknowledging that institutional knowledge and client relationships have value that doesn't show up on a balance sheet. It would take a fundamental change in how Savory Solutions values expertise versus efficiency. None of that was going to happen. Chad, the issue isn't money. It's that you fundamentally misunderstood what I brought to the company. You saw my salary as a cost to be optimized, not as an investment in capabilities that generated revenue. That perspective hasn't changed. Look, Kevin, I'll be honest with you. We're in trouble. The board is asking hard questions about the client losses, and I need to show them we have a plan to recover. Then maybe you should have thought about that before deciding my 15 years of experience could be replaced by 2 recent graduates. The conversation ended with Chad saying he'd keep the offer open if I changed my mind. I won't. Here's what I learned from my meeting with Dr. Holt. Artisan Innovations has been tracking my work for years. They knew about the fermentation processes, the client successes, the innovations I developed. They saw value in my expertise that Savory Solutions had taken for granted. Dr. Holt showed me financial projections based on bringing just 3 of my existing client relationships to their platform. Conservative estimates suggested I could earn 40% more than my previous salary in the first year, with significant upside potential as we developed new intellectual property together. But more importantly, she showed me what it looks like to be valued for expertise rather than just managed as a cost center. Kevin, she said, companies like Savory Solutions see senior experts as expensive resources to be optimized. We see them as multipliers who enable everyone else to be more successful. Your knowledge doesn't just solve individual problems, it raises the capabilities of everyone you work with. That conversation was worth more than Chad's consulting offer. I start with Artisan Innovations next month. Scarlett and I are both excited and nervous, but mostly excited. And according to Jake, 2 more of Savory Solutions' junior researchers have given notice. Apparently, the stress level in the R&D department has become unbearable, and people are jumping ship. Sometimes the market corrects itself faster than you expect. More updates as this new chapter unfolds. Update 3. 6 months later. Holy shit, Reddit. I need to update you on what's been happening because this story took a turn I absolutely didn't expect. It's been 6 months since I left Savory Solutions and partnered with Dr. Holt at Artisan Innovations. I was planning to post an update anyway because things have been going incredibly well, but something happened yesterday that changes everything. First, let me catch you up on the past 6 months. Working with Artisan Innovations has been everything Dr. Holt promised and more. Instead of managing a department and dealing with corporate politics, I've been focused purely on innovation and client relationships. My fermentation expertise has become the foundation for some really exciting projects. Remember the craft brewery that wanted beer-infused barbecue sauces? We didn't just help them launch that line. We developed a whole series of beer-integrated condiments that are now being distributed in 14 states. My cut of the intellectual property licensing has already exceeded what I made in my last 3 months at Savory Solutions. The organic food company that walked away from Savory Solutions? They came to us. We rebuilt their soup-based project from scratch using my fermentation processes, and it's launching in Whole Foods next month. The partnership is worth $2.8 million over 3 years, and I have equity participation in the ongoing revenue. But the biggest success has been working with premium restaurant groups. Dr. Holt's network includes chefs from some seriously high-end establishments, and they've been fascinated by what we can do with clean label flavor enhancement. I've developed custom umami systems for 3 James Beard award-winning restaurants, and each one has led to referrals for more work. Financially, I'm doing better than I ever thought possible. My base retainer from Artisan Innovations is $120,000 annually, but with project bonuses and IP licensing, I'm on track to make over $180,000 this year. More importantly, I'm building assets that will continue generating income even if I'm not actively working on them. Scarlett quit her nursing job last month to go back to school for her master's degree. We couldn't have afforded that on my old Savory Solutions salary, but now we have both the income and the flexibility to make it work. So that's the success story part. Now for the plot twist. Yesterday morning, I got a call from Jennifer Walsh, the HR director at Savory Solutions. She wanted to know if I'd be available for a confidential conversation about returning to the company. Not as a consultant this time, as Director of Research and Development, with a promotion to VP track. Kevin, she said, I'm going to be completely transparent with you. Chad Morris is no longer with the company. The board asked for his resignation last month after the full extent of the client losses became clear. Chad's gone. Fired for the same cost-cutting decisions that led to my termination. Jennifer explained that Savory Solutions has lost approximately $18 million in annual revenue over the past 6 months. 5 major clients have terminated relationships, 3 others have significantly reduced their project volumes, and the company's reputation in the industry has taken a serious hit. The board realizes now that your departure created cascading effects they didn't anticipate. They want to make things right. The offer she described was aggressive. VP of Research and Development, reporting directly to the CEO. Starting salary of $140,000, with performance bonuses that could push total compensation to $200,000. Equity participation in company profits. A $25,000 signing bonus. Full authority to rebuild the R&D department however I see fit. We want to give you everything you should have had before, Jennifer said. I listened to the whole pitch without interrupting. When she finished, I asked about the 2 junior researchers Chad had hired to replace me. They're gone, she said quietly. Neither one worked out. The learning curve was steeper than anyone anticipated, and frankly, they weren't equipped to handle the client relationships that came with the role. So let me get this straight, I said. You fired me to save money on my $95,000 salary. You hired 2 people for $85,000 combined who couldn't do the job. You lost $18 million in revenue. You fired the VP who made those decisions. And now you want to offer me $140,000 plus bonuses to come back and fix everything? Yes, Jennifer said. That's exactly what we want. The silence stretched for probably 30 seconds. Jennifer, I need to ask you something, and I want an honest answer. Did anyone on the board or in senior leadership speak up when Chad proposed firing me? Another long pause. Kevin, I can't discuss internal board deliberations, but I will say this. There were people who expressed concerns about the decision at the time. They were overruled by arguments about cost efficiency and modernization. So people knew firing me was a mistake, but they let it happen anyway. What's changed now? I asked. The financial results changed, she said. When the cost of replacing you became clear, the board realized they'd made an error in judgment. I told Jennifer I'd need time to consider the offer, but honestly, I already knew my answer. Here's the thing. 6 months ago, getting a call like this would have felt like vindication. The company that discarded me was admitting they'd made a mistake and offering me more money and status than I'd ever had before. It should feel like winning. But it doesn't. It feels like they're trying to buy back something they never should have sold in the first place. My loyalty. My institutional knowledge. My client relationships. My innovations. When Chad fired me, he didn't just eliminate a salary line item. He eliminated 15 years of expertise that was embedded in every system I'd touched. The fermentation protocols, the client relationship management, the custom formulations, none of that transferred to the new hires because none of it was really documented in ways that could be transferred. That knowledge is mine. I developed it, I refined it, I applied it to solve problems for 15 years. And now I'm using it to build something better. At Artisan Innovations, I'm not just an employee who can be right-sized when budgets get tight. I'm a partner whose success directly contributes to everyone's success. The intellectual property I develop belongs partly to me. The client relationships I build are mine to maintain. The value I create compounds over time instead of just generating quarterly profits for other people. Scarlett and I talked about the Savory Solutions offer for hours last night. The money is tempting, especially the $140,000 base salary. But we both kept coming back to the same question. What happens the next time they need to cut costs? They fired me once for financial reasons that made sense on a spreadsheet. Who's to say they won't do it again when the next cost-cutting initiative comes along? Corporate loyalty is a one-way street, and I learned that lesson the hard way. I called Jennifer this morning and declined their offer. I appreciate the opportunity, I told her, but I'm committed to my current partnership. The situation you're describing at Savory Solutions, the revenue losses, the client departures, the reputation damage, that's not something that can be fixed by bringing back one person. It's a systemic problem that requires cultural changes I don't think the company is ready to make. Jennifer asked if there was anything they could do to change my mind. Honestly, no. This isn't about money or title or authority. It's about respect. You had my respect for 15 years, and you sold it for a $10,000 annual savings. That's not something you can buy back. The conversation ended with Jennifer saying she understood my position and wished me luck. Here's what I've learned from this whole experience. Your value isn't determined by what your current employer pays you. It's determined by what the market will pay for your unique combination of skills, knowledge, and relationships. For 15 years, I let Savory Solutions define my value based on what they thought my role was worth. But my real value was everything I brought beyond that role. The innovation, the client relationships, the institutional knowledge, the problem-solving ability that comes from years of experience. Chad Morris saw me as an expensive resource to be optimized. Dr. Holt sees me as a multiplier who enables everyone to be more successful. The difference in those perspectives is the difference between being a cost center and being an asset. Savory Solutions can offer me all the money and titles they want, but they can't change the fundamental truth that they discarded me when it seemed financially convenient. That lack of loyalty goes both ways. I'm building something better now. Something that belongs to me. Update: Jake texted me this afternoon. Apparently, the news of my declined offer has spread through the company, and morale is at an all-time low. People are realizing that if they could fire someone with my tenure and track record, nobody's job is really secure. 3 more people in R&D have given notice this week. Sometimes the market correction takes longer than expected, but it always happens eventually. Final update: 1 year later. Reddit: I promised I'd update you if anything significant happened, and boy, did it ever. It's been exactly 1 year since I was fired from Savory Solutions, and 6 months since I turned down their offer to come back as VP of R&D. I wasn't planning to post again unless something major developed, but what happened this week deserves an update. Savory Solutions is filing for bankruptcy. I found out through Jake, who's been keeping me informed about the company's struggles. The final blow came when their 2 largest remaining clients, a major food manufacturer and a restaurant chain that generated about 40% of their revenue, terminated their contracts and moved their business to competitors. One of those competitors is Artisan Innovations. The restaurant chain came to us 3 months ago looking for exactly the kind of clean label flavor solutions I'd been developing at Savory Solutions for years. Dr. Holt and I presented a comprehensive proposal that included not just product development, but ongoing support and customization capabilities. What clinched the deal wasn't just our technical capabilities, it was the relationship factor. The restaurant chain's head of product development had worked with me directly during my Savory Solutions years. She knew my work, trusted my expertise, and specifically requested that I lead their project. Kevin, she told me during our final presentation, we tried to maintain our relationship with Savory Solutions after you left, but it became clear pretty quickly that you were the reason that partnership worked. We need someone who understands our brand, our customers, and our operational requirements. That's you, not the company you used to work for. The contract is worth $4.2 million over 3 years. My equity participation in this project alone will probably earn me more than I made in my final 3 years at Savory Solutions combined. But here's the really crazy part, and the reason I'm posting this update. 2 days ago, I got a call from Kevin Webb, the interim CEO at Savory Solutions. He wanted to know if Artisan Innovations would be interested in acquiring some of their assets as part of the bankruptcy proceedings. We have equipment, client lists, some intellectual property that might be valuable to a company like yours, he said. I almost laughed. They wanted to sell me back assets that I'd helped create in the first place. Kevin, I said. Yes, we have the same first name, which made the conversation confusing. Most of the intellectual property you're describing is based on processes I developed. I don't need to buy them back. I already know how to do everything they cover. What about the client relationships? He asked. The clients that mattered have already found me. We talked for a few more minutes, but it was clear that there wasn't much Savory Solutions could offer that we needed. The equipment might be useful, but we can lease better technology than what they have. The client lists include mostly companies that are either struggling themselves or have already moved to other vendors. The valuable assets, the expertise, the relationships, the institutional knowledge, walked out the door when they fired me and the other experienced people who followed. Dr. Holt and I are considering making a modest bid on some of their fermentation equipment, but honestly, it's more about getting good deals on hardware than needing what they have. The irony is overwhelming. 15 months ago, Chad Morris decided that my $95,000 salary was too expensive and that 2 junior researchers could handle my responsibilities for less money. Today, the company is bankrupt, largely because they couldn't maintain the client relationships and technical capabilities that I'd spent 15 years building. Meanwhile, I'm on track to earn over $220,000 this year between my Artisan Innovations retainer, project bonuses, and intellectual property licensing. Scarlett finished her master's degree and started a new job that she loves. We bought a bigger house. We're talking about starting a family. But the money isn't really the point. The point is that I'm building something sustainable now, something that belongs to me instead of being at the mercy of whoever happens to be making cost-cutting decisions in any given quarter. 3 of my former colleagues from Savory Solutions have joined Artisan Innovations over the past year. Dr. Elena Vasquez, my original mentor, came out of retirement to work with us on a part-time consulting basis. We're developing innovations that would have been impossible in a traditional corporate structure, and we're all sharing in the success. Last week, Food and Wine magazine published an article about emerging trends in clean label flavor technology. Guess whose fermentation processes were featured as examples of breakthrough innovation? Not Savory Solutions, mine, through Artisan Innovations. I keep thinking about something Dr. Holt said during one of our early conversations. The difference between being an employee and being a partner is the difference between renting your expertise and owning your success. For 15 years, I rented my expertise to Savory Solutions. I was well compensated for it, but I was always vulnerable to someone deciding that my rent was too expensive. Now I own my success, and that ownership creates a completely different relationship with my work and my future. Chad Morris, by the way, started a consulting firm that specializes in operational optimization for food companies. According to LinkedIn, he's helping businesses identify cost efficiencies and streamline operations. I hope his clients do more due diligence than Savory Solutions did. I don't feel vindicated by the bankruptcy. I feel sad about it. Savory Solutions was a good company for most of my time there. They provided opportunities, supported my development, and created products that solved real problems for their clients. The company failed because leadership made short-sighted decisions that prioritized cost reduction over value creation. But I've learned something important from this experience. Your career security doesn't come from finding a company that will never fire you. It comes from building capabilities that make you valuable regardless of who you work for. I spent 15 years making Savory Solutions successful, but I was also making myself successful in ways I didn't fully recognize at the time. The expertise I developed, the relationships I built, the reputation I earned, those assets belonged to me, even when I was collecting a company paycheck. When they fired me, they thought they were eliminating a cost. What they actually did was set me free to use those assets for my own benefit instead of theirs. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is getting fired from a job that was keeping you from realizing your full potential. To anyone dealing with a similar situation, whether you've been fired, laid off, or are just feeling undervalued at work, remember that your worth isn't determined by your current employer's opinion of your value. The market will tell you what you're really worth, but only if you're brave enough to test it. It took me 15 years to learn that lesson. I hope it takes you less time. Thanks for following this journey, Reddit. I probably won't post another update unless something equally dramatic happens, but I wanted to close the loop on this story. Sometimes things work out better than you ever imagined they could.